Welcome back to another Trailmakers tutorial. Today we're going to be going over tips and tricks for building tanks. As you can see here, the way that I do my tracks squeezes the wheels in so that they're very tight together, and for me that always gives more of an actual track appearance, particularly when viewed from the bottom, like on the edge of this one. And there's different techniques that I use for truck tires and for the 3x3 tires. We'll also be going over how to make your turret flush, and I don't mean flush like a toilet, I mean flush to the hull of your tank, and several other things. But let's get started with those tracks. So both methods use pistons, but I'm going to start with the method that uses the truck tires. So we're going to space our first row of tires each out by one block. Then we're going to place a second row of tires offset so that the axle will line up with the gap in the first one. And for aesthetics, I'm going to raise up the two furthest ones on the ends. Then we'll grab our pistons, and we're going to slide them in the gaps between the tires there, connecting them to the outer row. Then we'll grab some blocks and start attaching things. Next, let's grab a seat so that we can mirror this. Oh, see, I'm not even looking the right direction. Now grab some more blocks and connect the two sides. And then we're going to select all of our pistons. We're going to change their start position to 0 and clear their inputs. And that's all you need to do to set up the look of your tank tracks. As you can see, the pistons drew them in and overlapped the edges of the tires. So it still looks a little wibbly wobbly, but it's consistent rubber all the way across the edges instead of having gaps in your tires, and that looks a little bit more tread-like. Next I'll show you the other technique before I go into the engines. So for the smaller tires, the 3x3s, whether they're the thick ones or the thin ones like the motorcycle wheel, we're going to start off similarly in that they're going to be spaced apart one block, but our second row is going to go over the top of them instead of to the side. Now we'll connect these up. We're going to connect just the bottom row together and just the top row together. And now we'll grab a seat. deselect our treads, copy them to the other side. And we just have to connect the two halves of the bottom. Now we're going to grab pistons again. And attach them between the bottom of the hull and the top of the hull. And it's the same thing. We bring the start position to 0 and remove their inputs. And now we've got smaller tank tracks. Now for actually powering the tank tracks, for tank steering, I've got two different methods for that as well. We'll start over here, because for tanks with more space, I tend to do this way. So we'll grab our engines, and we're going to do 3 rows. And we'll just do 2 each because these tanks aren't going to be very heavy, they don't need a whole lot of speed. So we'll select the 2 engines on the left, and go into the configurator. And we're going to deselect all of the tires on the right side. So that the only tires that the engines on the left are driving are the left side tires. And then for the left side, when it goes forward, it's going to be turning the tank to the right, and backwards we'll turn the tank to the left. Then on the other side, we just have to do pretty much the opposite. So we select the engines on the right side, deselect all the tires on the left, and for this one, forward is going to turn it right, and backwards is going to turn it left. And for the engines in the middle, we leave them exactly as is. So now we have engines for turning right and left, and separate engines for going forwards and backwards, which means we can do all of those operations at the same time, like a tank with twin transmission would be able to do. If you have less space to work with, or just prefer this way for other reasons, we have a method with only 2 engines. And it does require 1 piece of logic, but don't get scared away, it's just 1 little piece. And we're going to do something very similar here. The left engine is only going to be attached to the left tires, so we'll deselect all the ones on the right. And the opposite thing with the right engines, deselecting all the left tires. We set the controls the same, so the right engine gets left on the green, right on the red. The left engine gets right on the green, left on the red. And then this OR logic gate gets attached to both engines and has a green input of R2 and a red input of L2. So that'll take care of our forward gear. So now we have a tank that can do all the tank things, but when you're going forward, it really doesn't like to turn. If you're going forward full speed anyways, it doesn't like to turn. So it's more like a tank with clutch braking, although not exactly. And now that our tanks are mobile, we'll move on to the turrets. But first we gotta have a hull to put our turrets on, so hold please. Okay, so there's the simplest tank hull that I've ever done. But you'll see this hull has a little hole here, and that's where our turret's gonna go. So in order to do a flush turret, we're not just gonna have the rotating servo slapped in there, because then our turret's going to connect. As you can see by all those little dots, it's going to connect to the hull. So what we're going to do is move it 3 blocks up from our hole. And I'm going to delete a couple of blocks here so you can see better what I'm doing. Because we're going to grab some pistons. Yes, I know, big surprise. And we're going to attach them to the bottom of the servo. And then we've got a little bit of space down there. So we're just going to put a couple of blocks in the floor to connect our pistons to. I suppose I could have used the engines that were there, but I pushed them back already. And we're also going to need a NOR gate. And we're going to slap that right there as well. So the NOR gate gets attached to the pistons, and you give it a -1 output. And then the pistons, you remove their inputs, and give it a duration of 0.62. You don't have to change the speed, the start position, or do auto reset. And then just because we're starting the turret here, I'm going to give this proper controls. And we'll put back the pieces that I took away there. So boop and boop. Now you see how the pistons drew it all the way down, but there's a slight gap. That means the blocks don't actually hit each other at all. So there's no collision, no sparks or anything like that. And now that we have the base of our turret, we can move on to the barrel. So I'm going to build out a turret ring here. I'll try to keep it short. Then we'll grab the rotating servos. Put one on both sides. Now this one already has its green arrow and red arrow in the way that I like. So we do up on the green, down on the red, bring the speed down, and put hold position on. Then on the other side, the red and the green are swapped, so we're going to do the speed in the negative, so that we can do the same controls on here. And you'll see why I do that in just a minute. Next, we're going to grab some rounded wedge 2x1s. These little guys here. Because they connect to all the places we want them to, and none of the places we don't right now. So these are connecting just to our rotating servos, and will be just connecting to the front and our barrel. The tops and the backs don't have any connection points. Then some rounded 2x1s to start off the barrel itself. And we'll give it a little bit more chunkiness, just for aesthetic reasons. So that it looks more like a turret as we're building it. Next, we're going to grab a distance sensor and put it on the bottom of our barrel. And we're going to connect that to both of our up and down servos, which is why we had the speed changed on the other one, so that they can work in unison. And we're going to change the distance to 0.2. And what that's going to do is going to keep our barrel from going down into our hull. Well, you can see that it gets a little stuck there, but that's because our hull is really poopy right now. But you see the distance sensor lights up and works against the input that your controller is doing and holds the barrel right there. Because if you don't do that, you can have issues like this. So it's just a little addition here, and it sets us up for the next thing I want to show you, which, surprise, uses pistons. Now piston glitching is pretty simple. It's just using pistons to intersect two weld groups. In this case, we're going to have two barrels. And to set up the pistons, it's the same as we did on the wheels earlier. Start position 0, and clear the inputs. And now, we can put two tank barrels on. And you see it sinks down in there, and it looks, well, it doesn't break. It looks exactly like there's only one there, other than the fact that you can see the pistons in the barrel. And that'll give us twice the damage per shot, plus a little bit of shot spread there. So better chances of hitting your target. Or, if we give this a delay of, what is it, 0.15, you can shoot at twice the rate. Alternatively, if we take the flat cannon and change its skin to the alternative one. Did I say alternatively twice in a row? That's silly. But anyways, now you can have two different shell types for your cannon. You can have X as your main shell, and L1 as your flak shells. Also, with the connection points on the side here, we could add a coaxial machine gun. And coaxial is just a fancy word for saying it points in the same direction as the main gun. And we'll give one of these a little delay of 1/8 of a second, or 0.12, and change their controls to one that we're not using yet. And now our tank has some firepower. Next I'm going to talk a little bit about armor, so I'm going to pull out one of the finished tanks from earlier. Now if I just select all the heavy weight blocks in this build and move them to the side, you can see there's quite a lot of them. And they protect, well, they attempt to protect all the juicy innards of the tank. Because this particular tank has quite a lot of logic in it. Although it's not the best protected, because I don't really know the best techniques for using these heavyweight blocks. I just kind of spammed them in the front and then had a thin shell around the rest of it. But as you can see, there's gaps where there was regular blocks, and that often lets in explosions and destroyed my logic. So the point of using heavyweight blocks is because they have a lot more health than the regular blocks do for their volume. And if I just hit undo a couple of times, not that many times, another thing you can do to add some health and vitality to your tank is having more side armor in the form of fenders that you sink down in. Now, this is already using pistons that we set up before. Our turret's set up the very same way, except our NOR gate is down on the floor this time. But then coming off of those pistons, we just have some blocks going off to the side and connecting our fenders. And then also connected to those fenders, we have our driver's viewport and flamethrower. And this is just to show that you can piston glitch in all sorts of things with the pistons that you've already used to make your treads or your turret. And if we get out, without destroying it anyways, you can see that there's a little bit of a raised lip at our driver's viewport, because that's the distance that our turret is held above the hull. Also, if you're wondering what all that logic in this tank is actually for, it's because it has a whole bunch of weapons to it, more than I had buttons in the controller for. So we have our main cannon shell, flak shell, machine guns, flamethrower, short-range artillery, and landmines, which has stuck to my butt. There was a recent update, and apparently my landmine launcher no longer works the same. But at the same time, my landmines aren't blowing me up. So, is that a good thing? I don't know. What if I just... I like the auto-aim wiggling the turret on that one. Yep. As I thought, as soon as I got close to another structure, they detonated. Quite spectacularly. Now, the turret actually survived in one chunk, which is a testament to those heavyweight blocks. But the hull kind of got vaporized, which is a testament to the strength of the landmines. Now, if you want to know how to do the logic that controls all these weapons, I have a separate tutorial that I'll link in the description, because it's a little too complex to tack on right here. But another way of doing it is to just... If I go over here to our demonstration tank that's a little easier to pop open, if we take our forward engines and change the controls to something more War Thunder style, forward and backwards on the left stick, Cover that back up. Now, it drives just by the left stick, and it frees up R2 and L2 to add more weapons here. Because we were already using X, L1, and R1, now we can say slap on a flamethrower on the front here. And we'll say that's it. We'll get that L2. And we'll try again with those landmine dispensers. And see if I can't make one that doesn't stick to my own butt this time. We'll do R2 for that. So now we have 5 different weapons. And that doesn't take any logic. It just takes a little bit of getting used to if you're already used to driving tanks with R2 and L2 as your drive, because you'll do stuff like that, where I just went to drive and pooped at a landmine. Can I not damage my own landmines anymore? No, I can. See, I'm learning too. But anyways, I think that about wraps things up. Oh wait. There was something that I had out for demonstration earlier that despawned because it's been a little bit. And that is... where is it? This little guy. Now it's technically not a tank, it's more of an armored car, and it uses all techniques that we've seen before. It's just regular piston glitching here and here. But the sneaky thing is this piston here that aligns our barrel from a 2-block center to a 1-block center. So for our small build we can have a little tiny turret. And we do that basically the same as before with the big turrets and sinking them down into the hull. We have a NOR gate connected to our piston with an output of -1. And then on the piston itself, we've removed the controls, and this one has a duration of 0.52, which is just about ideal for lining up in the middle. It might be slightly off, but it's hard to tell, and it's good enough for me. But if it's not good enough for you, then just try clicking it up to 50, or down to 51, or up to 53, but 52 is an easy one to remember because there's 52 cards in a deck of cards. So you can remember that for lining up your barrel. But anyways, I think that about wraps things up. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And leave a like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.
PlayStation